This is The Mud Peddlers, a podcast where two nerdy ceramic artists share the behind the scenes of their worlds of clay. We are your hosts, Lindsey M Dillon.
And I am Donte of Earth Nation.
Hello, welcome to the Mud Peddlers podcast, coming to you live from NCECA. Without Lindsey, I know, don't cry, it's just Donte West here in the building. Today we have two representatives from Skutt, which is awesome because we did not plan this whatsoever. Usually I kind of email companies and see what information they want to share, if they want to do any advertising or anything like that on the podcast, and I want someone on the ground level to kind of talk to us on the podcast, right? But here we have like a surprise one. Why don't you introduce yourselves?
Hey, my name is Jim Skutt, and I am the board chair for the last couple of years of Skutt Ceramics. I've been
Holy
around.
crap, I just realized your last name's Skutt.
It is, in fact, Skutt, yes. So,
Are you the Skutt?
I am a Skutt.
Jesus Christ.
So,
You didn't tell me.
I wanted you to find out for yourself.
I
Surprise.
can't read, evidently.
So I am the third generation in a long line of kiln builders, and I've been with the company since 1987. So a fair number of years.
Okay.
And hanging in.
And I'm Chad Stewart. I'm the new National Education Sales Director. And I'm very, very excited to be entering the world of ceramics. It is absolutely incredible. It is heartfelt, and this has been a very big surprise for us as well. I remember Donte walking into our booth, and what a surprise. I said I knew the face, but didn't know who he was. Turns out I've been watching his videos for forever.
That's awesome.
It's good. You guys have fucking radio voices, and it's so good. So the weird thing is I like to meander around the building, and then I just ran into, I was like checking out Skutt. What got me is that I saw the firebox, like your new, like, I think it's the touchscreen firebox.
Yep.
And I was like caressing it because I was like, this is what I do all my glaze tests in before I put them in bigger kilns. And Chad was like, aren't you Donte? And I was like, yeah. I mean, depends on how much money you want, but yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely Donte. And then we kind of started this back and forth, and he's like, let me get my boss, and we'll talk about it. And since I'm already here doing podcast stuff, I kind of figured I'd get you two on the cast to talk about, like, ground level stuff. Because we're getting really good information out to the people. You know, there's a lot of, and I'm sure you know, misinformation out in the world.
Fair enough.
I disingenuously call them the Facebook crowd because they often share that information on Facebook, even though I know they're not all from Facebook. Right, and so I like to have somebody on the ground level to be like, no, I build the damn kilns. That's not true. You know what I mean?
Go right to the source.
You go right to the source. So
we know things like you can upgrade your controller on that little firebox to the new touchscreen controller. Just always putting a pitch in there.
I have a KMT 1027, and when I bought mine from Alpha, which is the guy I shook the hand of before, he's the owner of Alpha at the moment. His name is Josh.
Yeah.
And he was like, do you want to put a touchscreen on it? And I'd saved up for a big Skutt at this point. Right? And I was like, how much is it? And he goes, it's like $300 more. And I was like, just you do it? And he's like, yeah, it's not that bad. And of course, it's a 1027. I was like, I might as well get the trim.
Right.
So I got
upgrade the trim package.
You know? And then I kind of figured, well, I can't keep doing tests in a 10. You can't do tests in a 1027, like little tiny tests, unless you have 100 freaking tests.
Right.
So I bought a firebox, learned how to change my own thermocouple, and that's as far as my knowledge goes.
All right, you're doing great.
Even my own job is like, you know how to change thermocouples? And I'm like,
yeah,
I'm a pro. But really, I'm like, this is really easy. This took me 10 minutes in a drill.
We won't tell anybody there's a YouTube video on the subject.
Don't tell anybody.
No.
Don't tell anybody.
Blow your cover.
Yeah, you'll definitely blow my expertise. They'll take my expert card. I go into class. You're not cool.
Pull the ticket.
They'll take it. So what's it been like working for Skutt? You know, I know he's here. You don't have to lie though. You're safe. You're safe.
I will tell you, I am blown away.
Yeah.
I haven't been here as long as the rest of the team, but it has been absolutely phenomenal. When you say family at work, it can mean a lot of different things. Right. From the second that I walked into Skutt, it was clear that it is a true family business.
You guys have a good vibe to you. Sometimes I meet a company and they're like caffeinated out, like we got to get back to work or else the boss is going to hit me. You guys don't have that. I don't feel that energy.
That's good.
Which is great.
No, well, I can prove that too. Jim didn't know that this was happening up until about an hour ago,
Yeah.
and jumped right at the opportunity.
It's so crazy. There's a Skutt in front of me right now.
What's crazy is that you didn't realize it until you got live.
I don't know what the royal families look like. And so I try not to. Also, I try not to. Like, if I'm walking in the room, I don't want to like raptor skulk you. And so like.
All good.
I know some of the other people, but like I stared at Tom Coleman for way too long, and he has the stare back.
Right?
So I was like,
Tom's a great guy.
Tom's awesome for sure. I thought I would never meet him in my life. And how's it been working for Skutt for you? I know it's essentially a family business.
Family business. I mean, I started down there in the summers when I was 8 years old. So my first summer, I was 8.
Did they show you how to like build from childhood?
No, they showed me how to like push a broom.
Okay.
So that was good.
Free labor, church.
I teased my dad often that he was maybe abusing my good nature on this when he would pay me $1 every 3 days. I might have actually been overpaid, but don't.
He was ahead. He was ahead of the rest of us.
And then the next year, when I came back at 9, I got the biggest raise in my life as a percentage. I got a 300% raise, $1 a day. So I thought I was living large.
That bought a lot of stuff that back then, probably, actually.
It was pretty fun.
That probably bought all the candy bars.
But growing up in the business, it was just always, there. And I went off to college and didn't think I'd ever get into the family business, and worked at FDIC for a couple of years, closed a bunch of failed banks, learned a ton about business and bad business, and started looking around and went, this little kiln business is one of the good businesses. Hang on. I wonder if I can get involved in that thing. So my dad was never pushed me to get into it, but it was always available.
Good.
And I've never regretted the decision. I've always loved heat and electricity. It was a perfect fit.
The way I always look at kind of like the pottery families, like that you're from, essentially, is that the information that I gain in one lifetime can be recorded in a book. But if like my kid doesn't want to do pottery, it's lost knowledge. So it's really rare to find those like, actually, no one has documented this. But when you're building a kiln, this really matters.
Right.
And so like my grandfather knew that, and my father knew that, and I know that, and that's why I'm in the business.
Yep.
And that's kind of how it is. Like when you go to Japan, they're like, no, we've been doing this for generations. And every family member has figured out something detrimental that we pass down to the people who are in the family.
Yeah.
So it's actually an honor to meet someone who's like third gen. Your grandfather did it?
Yep.
Jesus Christ.
Yep.
Chad didn't warn me at all.
No,
I should learn how to read.
We weren't trying to sucker punch you or anything.
To be fair, I should learn. It says on your badge right there. So.
Oh, I thought it'd be a fun surprise for you too, though.
It certainly is a fun surprise.
Awesome.
Yeah, I thought it was you and your boss. Anyway, enough gushing. Sorry.
Okay.
So, are there any challenges along the way that you've experienced in building kilns? And I don't mean like business-wise. I mean more so in the physically building the kiln-wise. Because in my brain, I'm very physically oriented, as many potters are. So it's like if I can touch it, I can learn about it. And if I can learn about it, I can improve on it. And I can keep on doing things to it, right?
Right.
And so I often wonder, like, what are the physical limitations of building a substantially good kiln? Because in my mind, they're just toasters that insulate heat.
Yeah, no, I mean, technically, at the highest level, you're not far off the mark.
Exactly, right.
I think probably the hardest part in our job is getting the brickwork right.
Okay.
And so the tolerances on our bricks it's paramount. We've got to be down to, fractions of a arc second, when we're doing the angles. It's crazy. It's not, there's a technical term for it. It's
Tell
like
me.
not much. Yeah, it's
Tell me so I can use it on the podcast. Pretend I'm smart.
No, it's a darn small unit of measure.
Oh my god!
So we just built a new brick machine. The process is kind of raw, straight brick, right out of thermal ceramics.
Brick machine. Dumb it down for me.
A brick machine. So we get these bricks.
Because I know, but they don't know.
Got it.
I know.
Yeah. So we buy these bricks from thermal ceramics in Augusta, Georgia, and have been since the company started. And they're 9 inches long, 2.5 inches wide, and 4.5 inches tall.
Okay.
And they call that a straight. And then what we do is we carve it and chamfer it and cut element grooves in it and put radiuses on it and do all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And the clearances on that have to be really, really precise. Mm. And so you can't wiggle, it can't slip in the fixture, it can't rotate, you can't do it, but you can't squeeze it very hard.
Yeah.
Because it's not a construction brick. It's not a red brick building brick.
Everybody has a chip on the top of their Skutt, and they're that soft.
They're super lightweight.
Yeah.
And it took us about 3 years working with a partner in Vancouver, Washington, to help us get this machine, to build the machine. And it's phenomenal. It does a great job. but it really was quite a feat to be able to pull off that engineering. So that's probably the hardest part of building a kiln.
To get the bricks to really fit in there
to get
precisely.
them to fit right and look right. Yeah.
I have a dumb question.
No dumb questions.
No dumb questions, but a lot of inquisitive idiots in the world.
Fair enough.
Just putting that out there.
Hands raised
Right there.
for the people that can't see at home.
So I have two questions. One's a bit more in-depth, but one's very basic. Do you guys make kiln shelves?
We don't make kiln shelves.
Okay.
And it's actually harder than it looks. I have a lot of respect for people who do make kiln shelves.
I've heard from people that make them that like it's because you try to make a flat test style and that's an ass. That sucks.
Yeah.
But then the people who make kiln shelves,
Yeah.
it's like times 100 of what I'm trying to do at home.
Yeah. I mean, all the suppliers in the industry that people work with do a great job.
Yeah.
It is hard to do, to make a shelf that stays flat, that can hold a big heavy load
Right.
at temperature, be as thin as possible because thermal
Right.
mass matters.
Of course.
As we're trying to be more green, the thinner the shelf, the better. But the thinner it is, the more it warps.
Yeah,
Where do you go?
yeah, and then also there's an idealism of space, right? So it's like technically speaking, if my kiln shelf is like this much thinner, then stacking I get like 1 extra inch of space.
Absolutely.
And that
Oh,
1
yeah.
inch allows me to make my mugs 1 inch taller.
Right.
Right? More technical question
Sure.
for both of you. Feel free to jump in, right? So when I bought my Skutt rather, and I just want to say, I'm not sponsored. I'm not nothing like that. I have my 1027 and I have my firebox, but that's because when I went to Alpha, they were like, buy a Skutt, and I was like, okay.
Love them.
Right, and their Skutts are just all over the place, especially in California, it seems. When I bought the kiln, they asked me what thickness of brick I wanted, and my dumb newbie brain was like, does that matter? To what degree does brick thickness matter toward the heat work of the kiln?
Yeah, so in terms of heat work, like the combination of time and temperature and bending a pyrometric cone,
Yes.
really doesn't make too much of a difference.
Okay, that's comforting.
Where it makes difference is in kind of energy usage.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got, without getting too technical, there's a couple of numbers that we look at when we're building a kiln. It's kind of the total wattage that goes into the kiln, and then how much of it leaks back out through the brick.
Got
So
it.
it's kind of like having a hole in the bottom of a bucket where you're pouring water in.
I see.
Water's being the heat that you're trying to put in, and the hole in the bucket is the wasted heat. So a little bit thicker brick slows the flow of that water out of the bucket.
But
so to
it will
speak.
happen regardless, yeah?
That's why the outside of the kiln gets hot.
Right.
There's heat flowing out of it.
Of
right?
course.
So
course.
the thicker brick slows that flow.
Got it.
But then it's not just a perfect solution. You do have a little more heat storage. Just like heat storage goes into a shelf, you're heating up more brick as well. So
Right.
you do all the, you get about an 18%, overall about an 18% energy savings going from the 2.5 inch to the 3 inch.
Because it keeps in more heat. And
Keeps
as the
in more
elements
heat, reduces
heat
the
it up.
flow. So when you take in the heat flow savings and then the extra heat storage, it's about 18%.
Okay, so the money's probably worth it to like just get a thicker brick.
You can do the calculation yourself based on electricity rates, right?
Right.
Like in Phoenix in the summertime, I understand electricity is very expensive.
Or like Texas during that 1 year.
Right.
Yeah, that
so,
one time.
So those are the years when you want the thick brick for sure.
Absolutely.
You lose a little bit of size in the firing chamber on most of our designs, and that's not great, but a reasonable trade-off, we think, to
Of
have
course. Another dumb question. One more dumb question, because I feel like I know nothing about kilns. Again, I just want to put that out there. Except for the brick thing, I knew exactly where they come from. Don't question me. So whenever I close my kiln at the top, there's always like a little line, that big red line, and a lot of my students panic because when we fire the kiln load off, they look and they're like, fire, and I'm like, no, that's normal. It's very, very normal. Can you expand on that? Like, is that line purposefully there by design, or?
Well, if you look at the back of the hinge assembly on all of our kilns, you'll see that one way or another, we figured out how to let that lid float
Yes,
on top of
yes,
the
you
kiln,
have.
right? And so what happens is the hot face of the brick, the inside chamber, that expands more than the cold face does, and the lid actually ends up looking like a kind of a contact lens, right? It's a concave shape.
Right.
And so when that happens, you start to get that little line in there. And that's all that's going on. So you've got to let that lid kind of rise up and not be, it can't be clamped down.
Yeah, because whenever I close my Skutt, it's closed, and then it heats up and it opens a little, and I'm like, what did I do?
Yeah, no.
But then after 10 years, I'm like, has to be normal.
Yeah, and if we were to clamp it down really tight, we've done this, you clamp it down on all four sides,
Right.
It'll just break.
Right.
So you really don't want to eliminate that floating little gap right
That's
there.
normal, and you want it there, and
Yep.
it's there for a reason.
Yep.
Absolutely. Okay.
Yep.
No more dumb questions, I promise. Well, I can't promise. I can't promise that. So when I first got my Skutt kiln, it came with this stand. And the stand is important for
Yes.
obvious reasons.
Yes.
Right? Can you expand on the, because I've heard horror stories of people who are like, oh, just put it on a carpet. And I'm like, don't
No,
put it
do
on a
not.
carpet.
No.
Don't. I have definitely heard some horror stories.
Oh,
Right.
And even before I had my own kiln, I was like, that's fire on burnable, probably shouldn't. And so I assume hi. All day, dude. So,
Love
I assume that stand is just for like fire safety, yes?
Yeah, absolutely. So
Or
that,
is it
that
like-
same heat flow
Right.
that we were talking about, the outside of the kiln getting hot, if you capture it or put it close to something, that thing that it's sitting on, like if you were to put it on a wooden floor, that wooden floor is going to get pretty hot too.
Of course.
So we need to have that air going underneath the kiln to give a nice buffer. Interestingly enough, in the early days of doing the kiln and the UL testing, Underwriters Laboratory built a tent around our kiln. It was on the stand. They built a tent all the way around our kiln with 8 inches of clearance, and the material was tissue paper. And they said if we could make the kiln run away, meaning uncontrolled, way past cone 10,
Oh, okay.
and it doesn't ignite the tissue paper, we're good with that.
Really?
And that's where the 8-inch clearance came from
like
from
if it doesn't
combustible
reach
materials.
combustion point, if tissue paper doesn't reach combustion point,
There you go.
from 8 inches, you're
so
fine.
that's how they did it back in the day.
I think there's a dichotomy between people like me and my clay sibling Lindsey, where she will be like, no, I read the Skutt manual, because she has a Skutt too, of course. I read the Skutt manual, and it says before I fire, I have to fire it empty. True or false?
Probably, it's a best practice. It's a good recommendation. Here's why.
Yes.
So, and it's true for a new set of elements
So
too.
I make fun of her for that.
Yeah, no. It does say in the manual. So
It does say in
good
the-
on her
yeah.
for reading the manual.
No, I'm a very average man. Like, instructions, and
Don't
then
need
3
those.
hours later when I can't figure it out, I'm like digging in the trash.
Right.
I think we've all done that once or twice.
Every father I've ever met has been like, I don't
Right.
need instructions, and then like, I should read those.
I should read those.
I should.
Yeah. So, what happens with a new set of elements is if you next time you see one, you'll notice it. They're shiny, so they're metallic and shiny, and they look normal. The first time you fire them, a couple of things go on. There's a little bit of the alloy is iron and chrome and aluminum, a little bit of aluminum.
Okay.
And the aluminum's in there to actually make a protective coating on the outside of the elements. It's alumina or aluminum oxide.
For sure.
Right?
Yes.
And so that is a dull kind of matte colored gray.
Yes.
And so we want that a little bit of aluminum to come out of the base material and form that protective layer. And so the reason we say fire it empty is if you used a glaze that was really reactive, or there was a lot of sulfur in the clay body
That makes
on a bisque
sense.
firing or something like that, then those gases could attack the element.
I'm wrong.
Well, I don't know about right or wrong,
No,
but that's
I
our
have to-
recommendation.
I have to give it to Lindsey.
Yeah.
I
And
have
then
to.
The other thing it does is it also anneals the element because it's just a big long spring.
Definition of anneal.
Annealing is just relaxing the crystalline structure, if
Okay.
you will, in a material. So
Got it.
glass artists will anneal glass. You can anneal metal as well. And so we take this straight wire and coil it into a spring shape, if you will, the heating element, and then we stretch it. And if you don't preheat that or fire that element and you go to a lower temperature, like this happens more in glass kilns, they'll just fire it the first time to 1500. That relaxes it, and the elements will actually spring out of the chamber, out of the element groups.
I have one of
So
those.
you really want to fire it that first time. You really got to get it up over 1900 degrees, and that will relax the metal structure, if you will.
So I see, like you mentioned glass artists, I see a couple of glass artists that will fire the kiln, and of course it's like 1,000 degrees less than what I work at, and they'll open that mug and like work from it.
Right.
How?
Yeah.
Doesn't that seem...
So
I don't know,
glass and
dangerous.
ceramics kind of different, right? As soon as you get glass above 1,000 degrees, it's really pliable, right? We've all seen glass blowers and people work with glass, and it's anywhere from like thick honey or molasses
Yes.
up to almost runny.
It's
when
1,000
really-
degrees, and they're just like in front of it, legs spread, la 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 la, like shaping it, and I'm like, close it, it's 1,000 degrees, dog.
Right. And then from 1,000, roughly 1,000 down to 700, that's when they're done working with it, is when they've got to be careful about breakage. So quartz inversion, we got to be really careful about breakage, hot and cold. From 1,000 down, roughly, these are round numbers, that's when glass artists have to be very careful and let that crystalline structure reform. Otherwise, the piece will likely break.
Too quickly, and it'll probably...
Exactly. So you can't get in. So you got to let it reform itself in that glassy matrix.
That makes sense.
So they'll work with it all day long when it's hot and flexible. But then at the end of the day, and maybe you've seen lamp workers, guys that make glass things on blowtorches, basically.
Scissoring the glass.
Yeah, so they'll start putting stuff together, and then they'll put it in an annealing oven and keep it hot, keep it above 1,000 degrees for the whole day. And they'll add parts to it, and they'll make this big sculpture in this big oven. And then at the end of the day, they hit a button that just says, okay, anneal, and then it will fire slowly from 1,000 degrees down below.
Oh, like a slow cool.
Exactly. And so then the piece, they can work on it all day without thermal shock, and then at the end of the day, they can anneal it. So that's how our controllers...
I just learned something new.
That's how our glass controllers work.
They learned something new.
So did I.
Yeah, right. So from your point of view, not from your point of view, what is your role at the company? What's your daily life like at the company? Do you work on site, or I know a lot of other people that I interviewed are like, I'm a remote worker. I work for this company, but I never go there really.
That's a really good question. So actually, before this, I was a remote worker, and honestly, as crazy as it sounds, I actually like it more at the office.
Yeah.
So I'm coming in every day. We're located in Portland, Oregon. I've been a member of the team, and it's really, really amazing. We all get to work together. We've been spearheading something called Kids Need Clay.
Tell me about that.
And that is the major bulk of what I do on a daily basis.
Okay.
The whole team has really come together, and we're trying to prioritize ceramics and education again. That is a major, major focus for Skutt this year and for the future. This isn't just going to be a splash in the pan approach.
Yeah.
Our goal is to make this a very large and evolving program that becomes a national program.
So what's like the pipeline of this program? Is it like you take a certain portion of Skutt Studios and you carve it out and try and give people like free classes? Or is it like a wheel-based program where it's like you go to a school and bring equipment and then you're like, we're going to do a pottery class for free $99 for kids?
So actually, it comes down to kind of three main categories. And right, so I've got find a partner, learn and create grants and fundraise. But what that really means is, so think of it in terms of find a partner. Find a partner. We have ceramics programs all over the country that are sitting in what we call deserts.
Yeah.
They have access to no maintenance. They have access to no repair. In a lot of places, they may have access to no materials when it comes to creating ceramics program to begin with.
Yeah.
The first thing we want to do is find where the strong ceramics programs are and the weak ceramics programs are, and identify how we can help the strong ones continue to grow and provide support to the ones that are really, really struggling.
This sounds a bit like a Big Brother program, but with clay involved. That sounds great. Or a what's it called? We'll take this part out. What's it called when two people get married, but like it's not their choice?
An arranged marriage.
It's like an arranged apprenticeship.
There we go.
That makes more sense. That makes more sense.
The overall idea of it is, so I was at NAEA last week. Are you familiar with NAEA?
I mean, I know, but tell them, because I know exactly what that is.
National Arts and Education Association.
Yep, National Art Education Association.
So it was my very first time there, and one of the greatest things I got to do was spend all of this time with ceramics educators from all over the country. And I will tell you, one of the greatest trends that I saw were new ceramics teachers, new ceramics educators coming into a program that either isn't developed or has kilns in disrepair, or they are someone who has bravely volunteered to be a ceramics teacher or put together some type of ceramics program with no earlier knowledge.
That is a problem I see as well.
We had a very, very large percentage of ceramics educators that chose to retire during the COVID times.
Yeah, unfortunate.
Absolutely, extremely unfortunate. And what's almost as unfortunate is the amount of knowledge that they took with them. Right. You mentioned the conversation of lost knowledge.
Lost knowledge is a big thing.
Oh my goodness.
And then also like, of course, there's the conversation of gatekept knowledge where it's like you probably shouldn't know this because like I've worked so hard for it, and I understand that it's your stuff. No one's gonna be like share it with the people. You worked for it, but at the same time, there's definitely like the glaze recipe Randy's Red. I don't know who Randy is. I don't know where that glaze came from a magazine from like the 1950s or something, and I can't find Randy. and I can't ask them glaze questions, but everyone uses that damn glaze. So the information of the origins of the glaze are like time lost.
Yeah.
And so it's a big thing that I don't think we think about,
Mm-hmm.
but you're right. It is very like, there's people that know what they're doing that quit and now we can't. Yeah.
Well, and like you said, all it takes is just missing the step of one generation.
One generation.
And that knowledge is gone. And
Imagine if you couldn't teach your kid how to read for one generation.
yeah.
Down the line, it just gets worse.
Right.
We had ceramics teachers that were there for 35 years, and they were there one day and gone the next. There wasn't that mind share that needed to happen within all of those programs for the ceramics programs in those schools to continue to grow. So now they're kind of restarting.
I like that idea because it's like, don't tell anyone this. It's on the podcast. But like sooner or later, I'm going to have to, like, if it's not my kid, I'm going to have to be like, here's all my, if it's not like the company I'm working with, like Glazecake or something, I'm going to have to be like, here's all my glaze theories, here's all my glaze recipes, here's how I learned this stuff, here's all the stole chart and all that crap, and here's all this stuff. And that knowledge has to be passed down. And you're right, there's so many people that have just been like, I can't do what I do anymore. And they just, Western style disappeared off into the sunset with no apprentices, no books, no notes, tons of knowledge.
Yeah.
And so what I often find is that, like, before the podcast started, I told you guys I started doing my own thermocouples.
Mm-hmm.
2 or 3 years back, I figured out how to do a thermocouple, and no one in any of my studios, except for the manager of one of the places I teach at, knows how to change a thermocouple.
Wow.
Really?
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
Right? Because like, you give me a drill in a couple minutes and a fresh thermocouple, I can do it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
And, you know, it's a very simple task, but if you don't know how to do it, if you put the red on the wrong side,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
you get an error message for sure.
you hit the nail on the head of the other side of what this is, right?
Yeah.
Which is getting them comfortable with the idea of ceramics.
Yes.
Right? I mean, what I believe you called it a big toaster.
It's a big toaster.
In a lot of cases, that big kiln is a lot scarier to some people than just being a big toaster. They don't realize that as long as you turn it on, watch it, keep it safe, nothing is going to happen. Right?
Yes.
There are absolute safety things you want to do, but it's a big toaster, as you said.
Yeah, it is a big toaster with really good insulation.
And we really, really want to show that. We want to show that there's no reason to be worried about the kiln in the corner, especially when you have the type of tech support that someone like Skutt has.
You guys answer when I call you, which is what I appreciate. That, I appreciate because
That's the model.
That's
I'm
a
glad to
very
hear it's
low
working.
bar,
It's working.
but we really appreciate it.
It's you have no.
Yeah.
So I bought a car like 4 or 5 months ago, and I keep doing auto pay
Yeah.
every month. Like, you missed a payment, and then I call, and they're like, no, it went through, and I'm like, why? Do I have to put towards this effort to this very simple thing?
Right. Right.
And how many? There's not many of you, right? How big is your company?
We're at about 88 people.
I promise you, there's
85.
thousands of people at Toyota that can't figure this one problem out.
Yeah.
And at least you guys answer the phone.
Yep.
And you have videos on how to change elements and thermocouples and the like. And I feel like just with base knowledge, when I go into a studio and I go, I know how to change elements and thermocouples, they're like, oh my God, you're a genius. But realistically, it's probably,
Not very complicated.
it's not very, and you're right, that barrier, that fear barrier of like, oh no, I'm going to blow everything up, isn't as serious as people think it is, because it is really just an advanced toaster.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think the underlying fear, having taken thousands of tech support calls over my career,
Of course.
the underlying fear for most people is they don't really understand electricity. And so it's just this thing that comes to us through the walls.
Right.
It shows up in car batteries or something, somehow makes and I think with just a basic level of understanding, they can demystify and kind of talk themselves down off the ledge.
Yeah, like it's not that serious.
It's not that serious.
It's not that serious.
You got to respect it, but I always like to say if electricity makes you squeamish, call in a professional. But other
True.
than that, we can help you through a lot of. We can talk you through a lot of things you need to do to your account.
Very true.
Yeah.
So speaking to the desert, right? Those are that tech support. Those are the type of resources that we want to be able to offer. A lot of teachers, a lot of ceramics teachers out there don't realize that they can call Skutt, reach a real person, like you said,
Yes.
have a phone-to-phone conversation
Yes.
as they walk them through step by step, changing a thermocouple.
I didn't get a
As they
robot.
walk them through step by step, putting in new elements.
I got a person.
As they walk them through step by step of their first firing.
I'm getting really close to 40 at this point, and it's weird because I'm getting to that point where whenever I buy something, they're like, hey, do you want to give us your email? And I'm like, no, I don't. They're like, do you want to sign up for? No, I don't. Do you get 5% off? I want to give you the money, and I want you to give me the item, and I never want to see you again, Tamara.
This will be the end of our
This is
relationship.
the end of our relationship. You don't need to know my name. You don't need to know my number. You don't need my favorite color, my left arm, my firstborn child. No, you don't need any of that stuff. And so whenever I call helplines and they're like, oh, push 1 and it's a robot, and then I have to somehow be like, please give me a human being. And even the human being is outsourced, so there's sometimes a bit of a cultural dialectic barrier. In the most like boomerish way ever, it's really comforting to call you guys and you're like, yeah, what do you need? It's like, oh, a person on the dot. They know exactly what they're doing. And it's like the first time I got somebody in a service position that I'm like, oh my God, I can talk to you directly. I don't have to build my frustration to 50% before the robot gives up on me.
I'm really proud of two main things, and it goes back to kind of the core of what we've always tried to do: make great products and support them well. And our customer service and tech support teams are
incredible.
It's just we just keep putting energy into it, and it keeps getting better.
Yeah. You're doing good. The energy is great. The family environment seems awesome.
Yeah.
Weird question, and if you can't answer it, because there's always a section which I tell the people that I interview, like, hey, if you can't answer this, just say like, can't tell you that, sorry. We'll either take it out of the cast or we'll leave it in that way, But I don't know what the brick is made. It's up to you.
Yeah.
I don't know what the brick is made out of. What's the brick made out of? Or is that like, you're not allowed to know that?
No, it's not top secret at all. I think Thermal would tell you the magic, it's just kaolin clay and plaster and basically sawdust. They call it wood flour. So it's wood particles of a very particular size. And then when they fire it, the wood goes away and it creates those pockets. Right?
I'm sure you've heard of like the slang term oatmeal brick. Like,
I haven't.
All the people that I know of that work on, well, not every single one, but most of them are like the oatmeal brick. And I've always wondered, like, why do you call it that? It looks like oatmeal.
It does.
It looks like oatmeal. I'm like, yeah, but what's it made out of?
Like, it's mostly clay. Mostly kaolin clay.
Every one of them's like, we don't know, we just call it oatmeal brick.
Yeah.
Like, that's not helping.
Yeah.
It's so good to hear what's made out of.
And we've tried bricks from lots of different sources, and Thermal has a secret sauce to it.
Right.
That I'm sure they don't tell us.
Yeah, we don't need to
because I'd probably tell you on a podcast and blow their secret.
No,
But
you don't.
I've seen their factory a number of times, and it's amazing to watch the process of how they make it. But it's basically those 3 ingredients and then a lot of heat.
That's so cool. So just going back to this program you were talking about.
Yeah.
Are you planning on launching this anytime soon, or like what's the physicality of it? Like, are you going to set up a building and be like, anyone who's in this area can come get pottery classes, and we will do like what's going on?
So that actually hits on the learn and create part of this process.
Yeah.
So again, going back to the new ceramics educators, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest things they're lacking: lesson plans.
Say it again.
Lesson plans.
Lesson plans.
So what we're doing is building out a bank of lesson plans. So every single one of these new ceramics teachers is going to be able to go download. They'll be able to, just based on an average number of students per class, it will actually build out a materials list for them. Eventually, it's going to even build out a quote process for them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to generate every step of what they need all along the way. So it takes all of the guessing out of it. Our hope is that we can make this as easy as possible, and at the end of the day, it's going to continue to help grow the K through 12 ceramics programs across the country.
You got to get them there.
Yeah.
You got to get them there. When they're adults, they're bad people already.
Well, and there's so many reasons to do it, right? You have the tactile nature of learning.
Yes.
Right? Occupy the hands and we can sit and listen. I mean, I think about it as my generation. I hope this isn't an insult to the future generation.
No, you're good.
So they called us. They said we had the attention span of goldfish, right?
Yeah.
The current generations, that's kind of an insult to goldfish.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and it's not meant to. We have to find a way.
True.
We have to find a way to start motivating our kids.
Yeah.
To get them excited about education again. There
Agreed.
are so many different benefits to working with clay, whether it is that tactile learning, whether it is the therapeutic nature.
Yeah.
There's so many different benefits, and we have to be able to get that message out there.
I think a large portion of it for me, and I said this a long time on the YouTube, and I think I hit it on the head because a lot of teachers were like, oh my God, that's the first time I've heard it put that way, is that the system has kind of been built in a way that you like read words on book, you regurgitate, you pass test, here's a piece of paper to say you can have a good job, okay?
Yeah.
But realistically speaking, there's probably like 7 different brain types, and there's like probably more, right? And so there's like auditory, visual learners or tactile learners, and the pottery world is full of tactile learners.
Yeah.
And we've just accidentally found something that works for our brains. And so having laborers and people who know how to build kilns and the infrastructure of America in general is something that's valuable that I think the system doesn't really value as much at the moment because we're very techie. at the moment, you know what I mean? And so, in a weird way, you kind of need the colleges that are like, you need to learn how to build a kiln, right? This will give you a job for X, Y, Z, X, Y, Z. You need to learn how to weld. You need to learn how to do this. And so I agree with you that there's definitely kids that need a program similar to this, because you might be having a filter that sieves out or catches the net of kids who are just tactile learners.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, society would be like, if you can't regurgitate the book, Kevin, get out of here. Well, Kevin just needed to learn how to do something with his hands.
And it goes even deeper than that. I'll use my own experience for a minute, and it's being graded against the curve when it came to the averages of math, science, English.
Yeah.
That's a grade on a paper. But when you put your heart into a piece of pottery, when you put your heart into a project,
Yes.
you're graded based on the effort that you put into that.
Got it.
And that's something a lot of kids really, really need.
Absolutely, yeah. And there's just one system won't fit everything.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
There's 12,000 school districts in this country, and so whatever we undertake has to scale.
Of
So
course.
we can't build a center in every major metropolitan area, although I'd love to. Not yet.
I mean-
Global domination is, of course, the ultimate
be
goal.
awesome.
But I think probably the top part of this thing is finding the partner.
Mm-hmm.
So connecting the teacher with, we have already got a fantastic network of people that work with clay.
Yep.
They just may not know about it.
Right.
So if you're a 2D art teacher, or maybe just even new to teaching in general in elementary schools, and you've been tasked with taking on the ceramics program, where do you start?
Yep.
Well, if we can get you connected to one of our or one of many distributors in the industry, if they're not a Skutt distributor, we'll try to get them eventually. But that's a great place. It's super, and many of those distributorships teach classes, so they can. And if they don't teach a class, they'll teach them how to go through those lesson plans right at the cash register. I mean, it is the most friendly industry.
Yeah.
And if that teacher can wander into that distributorship, it's a whole new world that's going to open up. So sometimes it's just making the connection, and
Yes.
giving will be the platform to
Yeah.
to help everybody get acquainted. But,
And in a weird business kind of way, if you think about it with your evil brain, you're perpetuating the cycle of potters and kiln builders and ceramic artists that will probably keep this art in business,
well,
right? So, like, I know you're not thinking about that, but
Well, we know how calming, how centering and grounding ceramics and pottery is for
yes,
all of our customers.
Yes.
And it's like that old Coke ad, I'd like to teach the world to sing. Well, I'd like to teach the world to throw a pot. I mean, would it maybe not be a kinder, gentler place if everybody could chill out
I do think
with
so.
some clay?
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe.
It's also definitely like a crucible process, right?
Yeah.
Where you come into this art, and for the Instagram kind of makes it seem like a very meditative thing, but I don't think they know for the first 2 years of learning how to do ceramic artwork, it's frustrating, and then it becomes a process in which you learn to deal with loss, and you learn to accept failures, and you learn to take branching paths that lead you to success and finding your own artistic voice. And there's a lot of people that don't know how to survive in that crucible. It's like, you're going to fail, you're going to get the dirty parts out of you, you're going to become cleaner, you're going to get purified, and you're going to figure out a way to express yourself in this art form. And I think that's the really valuable part of ceramics.
I love that. It's okay to fail.
It's necessary to fail. It's
You
necessary.
have to fail
You
to
must
learn
fail.
and grow.
Right, that's the learning's in the struggle, right?
Yeah.
If the learning's absolutely in the struggle.
Yeah.
Let me see how long we've been going real quick. Lindsay's probably eating this up, which is great. Is there anything else you want to say about that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just yell it out there. We're at 38 minutes. 30's enough. So at this point, usually I'm like, what are you working on? What are your projects? And then I ask you a weird question at the end. Just yell it into the...
And then the very last part of Kids Need Play, if you kind of bring it all together, is the funding for the schools. Funding and grants. That's something that we really want to try and focus on. We want to be the facilitator and find where those grants are, where they qualify for, locally, nationally, and be able to kind of not provide, but try to cut through some of the red tape and at least give them a platform where it shows, hey, I don't know if you know this is available. I know you want to build a ceramics program. This grant, this fundraiser, this process is available in your area. Apply for it. That was a big part of the conversation at NAEA as well. So many different school districts, so many different educators want to start a ceramics program, but we know what education funding looks like right now.
Yeah, and
It's not easy.
on top of that, it's very like, how do you find a person who kind of knows what they're doing, has the experience? Because like you said, they just rode off into the sunset. And so they don't have like a phone number. There's no compendium of like, let me call someone who's been making glazes and throwing pots for 30 years and building their own kilns.
Oh, yeah.
They just stay quiet in their garages.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you want to build a program like that, they're not popping up out of nowhere. You know what I mean? So is this kind of like similar to when you played football real good in high school and then you got like a scholarship?
I wouldn't say scholarship at first. Right now, what we're looking at are grants. So there are hundreds, I mean, in some cases you might even say thousands of grants out there that schools and just regular old teachers can apply for.
Right.
The issue is accessibility and time. So if we can cut out the accessibility part of it, they only need to find the time.
Absolutely.
And so again, we act more as that clearinghouse, just making connections for people.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. It's also in the most selfish way possible. If you can cut out the middleman of me trying to find someone that I could hook up with and teach my stuff, then you've kind of done we're like, dear Skutt, I need an apprentice. Oh, we got it. We have this program in which we will send you one. Don't worry, they're nice. And then, and then we teach them and you continue the process and everything. And then we keep learning. Great. Are there any, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I just wanted to give you this. So we like to say, this is why we did it, right? Find a partner, learn and create grants and fundraising. That is the kind of the overall statement of Kids Need Clay. Mm-hmm. And then I'll flip over the back. And this is why we really do it.
Yeah.
Right? Kids need curiosity. Kids need creativity. Kids need focus. Kids need patience. Kids need art in school. Kids need play.
Yes.
All of that can be found through ceramics. All of that can be found through play. And so that's what is at the epicenter of the Kids Need Play program.
I love the vibe. No, I honestly like the energy. Yeah. There's off topic, there's so many people that I interview that they've seen a lot of my videos. So they're like, are you going to try and get me in a gotcha moment? And I'm like, I'm just here to chill, man. I promise you, I'm not trying to like...
I don't know if I've seen enough of your videos.
No. And so sometimes I get people on guard, and then after a good 30 minutes, they're like, oh, you're a chiller. And I'm like, yeah. So I love that you guys started off with the energy of like, we're just here to chill. Are there any, more for me than them, are there any new products that you're coming out with that someone should watch out for? Is there anything that you're innovating on and working on besides the Kids Need Clay project?
Yeah, so our innovation, the rate of innovation on kilns is probably slower than some industries, but we have just released the, we call it the mini touchscreen, so it's like the KMT touchscreen but shrunken down for the smaller kilns. So we're no longer doing that 3-button type controller that was had a little bit of a learning curve to get the user interface mastered. Yeah. And anybody who's got one of those can in fact upgrade to the mini touchscreen. So we made sure that touchscreen drops right in.
Right.
So that's I think there'll be a fair amount of that going on. We just did the PK, the 1427 PK, which is an oval kiln, a little bit smaller than our gigantic 1627, variation on a theme. So a lot of our stuff is kind of mix and match. And one piece of advice that I like to give folks, that Chad's a big strapping lad and he can reach the bottom of our 27-inch kilns.
Okay, you guys can't see Chad, but like,
he's a big strapping lad.
He do look like a lumberjack, but he's not wearing flannel, which is not the symbolism, but like.
But for anybody who's a little shorter than Chad, which
is everybody, by the way.
We have these 22-inch high kilns, and that whole line was developed so people could in fact reach the bottom of the kiln a little bit easier if they were vertically challenged. So you can. Matching. It's almost like getting a set of golf clubs or something. You can actually get them fit to you. So
one of my students has a little uppy stool that we hold next to the kilns.
Yeah, there you go.
He's not the only one from the stories I've heard.
Everyone makes like, oh, that's Janie's uppy stool. And she's like, shut up, everybody. She hops up there, and then when she's gone, I use it in secret, and she can tell. She looks at my shoes like, you've been using my stool. That's the clay footprint that's on my stool, and I'm like,
checking your tread.
So now I clean it. Okay, so I have.
And then the other project that's we started in 2011, kind of way before anybody knew anything about the Internet of Things, with KilnLink, and we're always putting effort into that, and we're about ready to launch a new release of KilnLink. So,
what is
KilnLink?
I know.
Yeah, KilnLink is it's a mobile app that connects your kiln to your phone, so that if you're not right next to your kiln, you can still see what's going on and keep an eye on it. So, powerful product.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm now going to ask you for a wish list of things that you can say yes or no to.
Okay.
In the possible, like I have a genie, you're the genie. I have a genie, and I ask them for unreasonably ridiculous things for
Okay.
kilns, and they tell me yes or no,
Okay.
based on the possibility if they can ever be done.
Okay.
Can I have a kiln that I can see through? A part of, like visually see my work heating up and working.
Okay, so like the whole thing? You
No,
want to be
just
able to see
just
through
a
it?
window, but not a peephole, like
Yeah.
a real like a 2x2 window,
Okay, so we do have quartz windows on our glass kilns for that very reason.
and they work.
And they work.
Will they work for ceramic kilns?
Probably not at your temperatures.
Damn.
So
Can I have one though?
But there are really cool materials. There's NASA came out with a material way back in the day that was the picture I saw of it was a 3x3 inch cube.
Yes.
And they had put a penny on top of it,
Mm-hmm.
and then there was a regular old light in the room, and you could see the shadow of the penny on the table.
Really?
The stuff was 99% air, and I wanted to get a couple of straights of
Yeah.
that stuff and make a kiln out of that.
Yeah.
Because we'd have this like Wonder Woman transparent jet thing.
I'd
going
pay
on.
for it.
Wouldn't that be cool?
I'd pay for it.
Well, I
It
think
would
it's
be
probably
big.
more
I
expensive
would-
than the shuttle tiles, and
I'd
those are
save
pretty
up.
pricey. So
It's twice the amount of a kiln.
yeah, so
I'll pay
probably
for
I think a quartz window would be something we could research, but usually quartz it gets pretty fussy around 2,200 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I run a hot 6, so it's like
yeah, you're right on the edge.
right on the edge. Yeah. Okay. What's the other one? A kiln in which, or an app in which I can push a button, and it stops my kiln, without me having to physically be there.
Yes, that's right around the corner. So that one you get to have.
Heard it here first.
Yeah.
First wish granted.
Yes. All right.
Because a lot of the like when I got the KMT, I was like, I love this and I love knowing what temperature my stuff's at. But if I'm here and my kiln node's firing,
Yeah.
what am I gonna do about that?
Right.
Like if it's over firing, if it's not the wrong temperature, right temperature, whatever. What am I gonna do about that? Tell my wife, like, run over to the breaker and turn it off. And then she's like, "What? I'm watching the baby." No. And then
Well, and here's
Yeah.
one that I got to put on the record,
Tell me.
because people ask us this all the time. I want to be able to stop it, and I want to be able to start it remotely.
oh, I don't know about that.
And then I said, okay, are you
Well,
sure? Because starting it remotely, we look at it as the potential for you could actually, kill someone.
Yes.
Imagine you had a kiln tech in
Yeah,
there
yeah, yeah.
working on your kiln, and you were off in the Hamptons having vacation. You go, it's time to start my kiln.
Yeah.
Now, theoretically, you would know that the kiln tech was there, but when we come to electricity, we do have a healthy respect for it, and we don't want to hurt anybody.
Yeah.
I
So
love that you
starting
thought
the
about
kiln
that.
remotely, it's probably never going to happen, at least not on my watch.
Okay.
Or you guys have to sign some big form that signs all the liability over. But we want to make a safe product, and starting it remotely
Well, the
could be dangerous.
the human condition is like, I could make it. I don't trust you to have it.
Off
And
is
just-
a great safety feature.
Off seems
On,
good.
Off is a great one.
Yeah, on seems
And somebody could, like, if you've got your kiln all set, and then you go away and somebody puts a bunch of flammable stuff on top of it, and unbeknownst to you, you start it, then we start a fire somewhere. I'd prefer not to have my name next to that.
That's fair. No, that's fair. Skutt made it. It's on fire. The bird, our dog jumped in the anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. A segment in my kiln that is closed off. Like, imagine if you made a big bowl and you put a bubble over it.
Okay.
Can I? For like a theoretical Sager firing,
Okay,
like
yeah.
kind of close it off.
Yeah.
Would there be an item that the genie could develop in which I could just throw a bow now that I think about it? But that would take up.
Yes.
A lot of
I
space,
think
right?
I think the quick answer is yes.
Okay.
And
Like a box, or
yeah,
kiln
I mean-
shelf-safe box.
Sager a muffle kiln is another
Yeah.
definition of that. So you have a chamber where you can inside the kiln where you can control the atmosphere,
Okay.
and then around that you have an oxidizing atmosphere,
Mm-hmm.
and that air just it's slow, and getting instrumentation into it can be a problem,
Mm-hmm.
and that's probably why nobody's done it
Okay.
yet.
That's fair.
But
Too expensive, also probably.
well, there are conceptually the concept's out there.
Right.
It's budget constrained right now.
I'm not the first, for sure.
You're not the first, and I think they do it all the time in industry. But
Okay.
they're throwing $20,000 at a thermocouple instead of $20 at a thermocouple.
Can I have? Because one of these wishes went pretty well. One wish is. I didn't expect any
got
wishes.
two, actually.
It's pretty good, right?
Yeah.
Can I have kiln plugs made of glass, so I don't have to take them out? I can just see through them to look at because
right. So
the whole thing is that you put your Orton cones next to the
right.
so
that
you
was
can look
in,
at them.
Yeah, in the day for sure.
But what if because they're hot
Yeah.
and my hands are weak?
Right. So I would say I could definitely set you up with a guy who could answer that.
Oh,
because
okay.
he is.
Please do.
There's a guy in our neck of the woods up in Portland that is a scientific glass blower, and he gets stuff down to he's tight. That guy's down to 1,000th of an inch. Working with quartz. And if anybody knows if that could be done, it'd be him.
Okay.
So again, to that, we're the clearinghouse. We'll help the network grow. I'll put you in touch with him.
Fifth and final. I lost count. I can't count. Wish, right? Can I have a kiln in which I can switch without the use of fire from oxidation to reduction? Because like the old school potters would take like incense and put it in their peepholes to get like a reduction, even though it does not work whatsoever. Is there a possibility where the genie goes, we can just switch that to like at least neutral, if not reduction?
So I think the
atmospheric switch ?
Yeah, the problem with it is the heating elements. Okay, so if you were to, I think a couple different people have done this before. This is nothing, not that fancy.
Right.
Like propane auto ignites at above 1,500 degrees.
Fair.
Don't quote me. All right. Just
right.
a disclaimer on that.
Round.
But generally speaking, it should be pretty safe if you were to open a valve and the kiln temperature was that hot.
Right.
It could ignite. Right. But then if you were to get a good reduction atmosphere, that starts to attack that oxidation layer, the alumina oxide, where we started this conversation.
Right.
It starts to eat away at that. So the elements can take it for a little while, but eventually a reducing atmosphere with oxidizing heating elements, those two don't get along so well.
You probably burn the crap out of your elements.
Elements go away quick.
Yeah.
Really fast. So you can do it, but it won't last long. So then that's where the muffle or the sagger inside the kiln, that's the idea there is, can I have reduction inside of oxidation? And then the trick is just, that's pretty easy to do. A lot of people do that. If you want to instrument the air temperature inside that muffle, that's the hard part. How do you get the thermocouple in there?
I'd heard a story about...
engineers can fix that.
Of course. I've heard a story about a lady who lives next to the ocean on the beach, and she has a kiln. And she's like, I have to change my elements every year. And she lives so close to the ocean that the theory so far is that the salt from the ocean is attacking her elements. And so she has to change them out every single year.
Interesting.
It turns out we found out that she was using pretzels as like a slip cast because the pretzel burn off.
There we go.
But she wasn't using unsalted pretzels. So she was putting
salted,
she was dipping her salted pretzels inside of slip. Like buying them and then firing them, and then they would leave a pretzel shape afterwards. But of course, the sodium attacks the elements.
Right.
And so she's like, I just don't know what's wrong with my... And then by the time... She's like, well, I live next to the beach, so maybe... And so we all assumed... One day she posted a video, and we're like, you can't put pretzels in your kiln salted.
That's why.
That's probably why.
Awesome. I love it.
The salt... But she connected the salt.
Let's try going a year without the salt and see if it...
I don't think she changed. She was like, I have to move. And we're like, stop putting salt in your kiln, maybe.
Maybe?
All the time.
Yeah, all the time.
All the time. Yes, please. Okay, I'm going to ask you safety questions, and we'll end it pretty soon, I promise. Safety question. Not a safety question.
Oh, wait, the genie questions weren't the bizarre questions?
Genie questions are done.
Those weren't the bizarre questions?
No, these are the safety questions.
Okay, safety questions. Got it.
So when you do a bisque or even a glaze fire, peepholes in or peepholes out?
Ah, man, there are
many?
as many theories on what to do with peepholes as there are potters at this conference. It's amazing. More than that, because there's some potters that aren't at the conference.
Right.
So what
They're
we
not
always...
all here.
So the answer a little bit is it depends. What we would say, so the first question or the first decision point on a decision tree here is, do you have a downdraft vent like our Enviro vent installed on the kiln?
Right, the one that comes from the bottom.
Yeah, exactly. So it pulls cool air in, fresh air in through the lid, and takes the exhaust out through the floor. Do you have one of those? Yes or no?
No, but that was my next question.
Okay, so let's say you don't have one of those.
Okay.
So then what you got to do, so that the downdraft vent makes sure that you get lots of fresh air in there for oxidation to take place.
Got it.
Okay,
Plenty of free-flowing oxygen.
Exactly, so it burns out the impurities in the clay. Clay doesn't have very many impurities. Our clay manufacturers in this industry do a fantastic job of making nice pure clay.
Yes.
Even so, it's got a little bit of carbon, a little bit of sulfur, a little bit of fluorine, stuff like that has to burn out. So that's a benefit of using a downdraft vent, is you get lots of oxygen. Also helps our glaze developers, as you know, because we have to get oxygen to develop the colors, the oxides.
A lot of, my oxidation.
Okay, so if you have a downdraft vent, all the peep plugs in, lid closed, just turn the vent on, fire both glaze and bisque that way. If you don't have a vent, we recommend all peephole plugs are in except the very top one, and prop the lid on a bisque firing. I think even we say on a glaze firing, but I'm rusty on that. Prop the lid open about an inch until about 1,000 degrees, and you can tell 1,000.
1,000?
1,000 because the inside of the chamber is just starting to glow.
Okay.
That dull red. Okay.
So we can prop it open until it gets to about 1,000, and then we should probably close it.
Then with temperature-resistant, heat-resistant gloves,
Got it.
lift the handle and pull that little lid
Don't
prop
raw
brick
dog it.
out.
Got it.
And set that brick down on something non-combustible.
Okay.
And then lower the lid and leave the peephole, that top peephole plug out for the rest of the firing.
Just the top one?
Yep.
So
And that'll
even in a
get you-
bisque or a glaze,
Yep.
top one out?
That'll get you some fresh air.
Got it. Okay.
Okay.
So the main goal is to get as much oxygen in the kiln and oxidation firing as possible,
Yep.
while still keeping convection of heat.
You got it. Yep. Conduction,
Perfect.
convection,
That's
radiation, all three. Yep.
Perfect.
Yep. So one thing I will say as a cautionary note, because you said it's under the category of safety,
Yes.
it's super important that you never take out two peep plugs at the same time. Now, to have two open peep holes at the same time.
Because someone I know, not me, clearly,
Yeah.
does that.
Yeah, so the reason is because of convection. So the lower one will always suck air into the hot chamber, and the hot one will always exhaust hot air out.
Because heat rises.
Because heat rises,
Okay.
and you get what we call a jet draft current.
Got it.
So you actually get almost like a blow dryer effect of hot air coming out of the top peephole. And then if you were to stick your eye down there to look in,
It would blow.
it would be very, very bad. You could get injured. We've had people, we had learned of a woman with a long ponytail, had all of her peep plugs out, and her ponytail caught on fire from the top peephole because of that jet draft. And fortunately, she was all right. She was right there with other people.
Yeah.
And they put her hair out really quickly.
Wow.
But I'm not kidding. Be careful of those peepholes because anytime you can get convection, it'll be bad.
So when you're firing, the top and the bottom, or two probably, shouldn't be out. But when it's cooling down, is it okay to top and bottom out?
See, now that's the next thing. So let's say the kiln's firing. The best practice is only remove one peephole plug at a time. So if you needed to look at the third one down, take that one out and put it in the top peephole. So you still just have one open at any given time, okay?
Otherwise, general rule, only one.
Only one at a time when the kiln's hot.
Understood.
Now, you're cooling, let's say you're below quartz inversion, so you don't have to worry about breakage. You're below 1,000 degrees there, and you really just want to cool the thing off faster. My first advice, best practice, right? There's lots of ways to do this, but I want to give you the highest probability of success.
Okay.
And so we say, leave the peepholes alone. If you've got to cool the kiln off faster, the best thing to do is put that sixth peephole in on your 1027, close the kiln up, and put a small fan on the outside of the kiln, blowing the hot air away from the outer skin of the kiln. It's like wind chill for your kiln.
Got it.
And it'll
Okay.
take anywhere from 2 to 6 hours off of your cool down times. After the kiln's gone to peak temperature and you're trying to get that last little bit of heat out of there,
Okay.
then whisk it away, right? And the reason it's so good is there's no thermal shock to your pieces.
Makes sense.
Okay?
Okay.
Now, having said all that, and best practice, if you're a risk taker, and you may be a risk taker.
I know a guy, not
Right. I mean, just asking for a friend.
Steve.
Yeah. So we have lots of people that will, at the last couple 100 degrees, 400 degrees or something, pull out all the peepholes, prop the lid, stand away from it.
Yeah.
They know the risks. As you know, last
gloves are singeing.
my
I need to work
5-minute
now.
rant on safety.
Yeah.
But no, we really want return customers, repeat customers. So safety is really high on our list of priorities.
We don't want them, if they're dead, they can't.
Yeah.
If their hands are burned, they can't operate kilns,
Yeah.
and they'll buy kiln. Understood.
Yeah. And you could probably comment more on thermal shock and what happens to the glazes. If
Yeah.
the outside, if the glaze shrinks much faster than the clay body, we get crazing. That may not be good.
There's like a value of X and a value of Y, and if they're too far apart with aspects of thermal expansion, it's like you're getting crazing.
There you go.
Or sometimes crawling if it's in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
It's
So that's why we think the approach with all the peep plugs in and blowing, it doesn't have to be a high velocity of air. Just a little bit around the edge of the kiln will blow it away.
Okay, so the general rule, stand on the hill of one peep at a time unless you're in a hurry, in which case, little fan, still one peephole though.
Still one peephole. Actually, I'd say even close that peephole up.
Okay.
Because you don't want any room temperature air getting forced into that open peephole.
Okay.
So let the brick be your thermal buffer, and then encourage the brick to suck more heat out of the kiln by blowing it away.
Second safety question, not really, kind of safety. A lot of people kind of like the downdraft or the updraft, the ventilation.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of potters who don't have that. the main reason that I've been told, and this is what I'm kind of asking for clarification on, is that the reason you have that is for the longevity of your kiln and the health of your kiln. Like if you have a downdraft or if you have a vent, it helps a lot with your kiln and it lasts way longer. It's like you're taking care of your kiln. Is that true? And if it is, how true is it? Is like you're adding 3 years to the kiln, or is it like, no, it's just better circulation of air?
Yeah, we have some anecdotal evidence it may extend the element life a smidgen.
Okay.
But we don't market that product as a device that will extend the life of your kiln.
Got it.
We think it gets more oxygen in the chamber. It will help even out any temperature gradients during the convection phase of the firing. So below 1,000 degrees is where there's lots of heat transfer from convection. So it kind of helps out with that. And it'll help with color development in your glazes.
Yes.
Those are kind of the big three. Of course, it takes the smelly stuff out of the kiln and gets it outside.
Right.
So
Smells good.
And if you're using commercially prepared glazes, there's really nothing toxic that comes off of the kiln except teeny tiny amounts of carbon monoxide. And I mean teeny tiny. Like you'd have to stand over an unventilated kiln.
You have to suck through the peephole.
About 8 inches away for 8 hours to even get OSHA thinking about it. And then they're more worried about your back than carbon monoxide.
People pretend like, no, the manganese dioxide's going to kill us all. And it's like, you probably get more in your lungs driving your car to work.
Yeah, I'm not a glaze chemist, so I got to back. But I do know that like the Makos and Amicos of the world, and Spectrum, those glazes are really safe. What's coming off of them is really safe.
They put them through the ringer. I interviewed a couple of them, and they were like, even our non-food safe ones, like not food or dinnerware safe, like we still eat off those. They're still good. We have to apply certain standards, right?
Yep.
Okay, third safety, ridiculous one. I might just be throwing these out there to confirm whether I'm right or wrong or not. Now, you're loading the kiln. How close can I put my work, bisque or a glaze, to my elements? Because I know a guy, again, Steve.
Yeah,
bad
asking
guy.
for a friend.
Yeah, asking for a friend. Steve sucks. Really, really close. Here's the pot, and here's the shelf, and like the pot's like hanging off half of the foot.
Okay.
And it's hugging the element. It's like
a quarter inch maybe.
That's generous.
Okay. So
Quarter inch is generous.
So here's the deal. I do lots of talks.
What is Steve doing wrong?
Well, here's the thing. What I would say is when I open up these talks, I'll say, hey, this is the world according to Jim.
Yeah.
All right. So these are what we've called over tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of tech support calls.
Right.
We call them best practices.
Got it.
We would say at least an inch away from
the elements.
From the elements. Now, if your buddy Steve is doing that, and the glaze is coming out okay on the hot side and the cold side of the pot, if you will, because the elements are a little hotter when you get that close. You can get localized.
Of course.
If Steve's doing that and it's working, God bless him. Go with
fair.
Just keep doing it, and that's fine.
I'll call him after this.
But if you're one of these new teachers, for example, that just got a clay program and isn't sure where to go, I'm going to say an inch all the way around.
Yeah.
And we do like to. I'll also say 2 inches from the end of the thermocouple is
okay,
really
so not
important.
close to the thermocouple.
Not close to the thermocouple at all.
2 inches away from the entirety of the thermocouple.
Yep, just from the tip.
Can I ask why?
Yeah, so we don't want that's the sensor, right? That is the money behind this whole controller operation.
Right.
And if you influence that reading, for example, if you were to put a shelf right underneath that thermocouple, the shelf's the last thing to heat up in a kiln, and so it would make that thermocouple think that it's colder inside the kiln. It would call for more heat, and the net result would be an overfire.
You just saved so many people right now. Because
excellent.
The amount of people that are like, well, my work can't be 2 inches from, because a lot of people know that general rule. I know the 2 inch rule, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't know the kiln shelf rule. But I have theorized that, like, well, the kiln shelf holds heat in the kiln. Clearly, it's cordiorite, right? Like, it heats up.
But it's the last thing to heat up.
I didn't even think about that part.
Yeah.
So it's like when I put my Orton cone in there and it says I fired to a hot 6, and the actual Skutt program thing says 6.
Yeah.
I'm always like, why are they different? I would be willing to assume.
I'll tell you that story after we're done.
I would be willing to assume that half of my stuff is just user error on my part.
No, that's not it.
That's okay. That is all of my genie questions. Okay, the last question before you kind of plug your stuff, tell people where you can find the clay program, the Kids for Clay, and then also your own stuff. It's kind of weird me asking a Skutt to where can people find you? How do people find you?
Right.
If you were not doing this, and this is for you firstly, right? Why are you jacked?
Somebody's got to lift those kilns.
That's the only reason they hired me.
Hire that one. He doesn't know what he's doing, but he lifts the kilns. He puts the segments on, right? If you weren't doing this and you had like Batman money, unlimited time, unlimited resources, you had your own genie, and he didn't say no to you. He was like, I can do whatever you want. What would you be doing other than what you're doing now? Don't say world peace. Be selfish. Be selfish.
I'm not going to say world peace, but I'm not going to be selfish either, because I'm very unique. I feel very unique with that question, because I chose to do something very different from what I was doing by coming here. And it's because I have a very, very high appreciation for creativity and the arts. And while I am not a ceramicist yet, I am hoping to become one, and will be asking you many questions going forward now that we're friends.
Dude, just whatever you need. I always tell people to like contact me, but if you like Instagram me, just like Instagram me and I'll answer. It's weird that I answer Instagram before text, but millennial.
The short answer to your question is purpose. I want to find some way to be of purpose and give back.
Okay.
That could be in any form, any facet, but as long as it's impactful, that's the choice I made when I kind of came here. Like I love the Kids Need Clay program. When they presented it as the opportunity and what they want to grow, what they want to build, I said I want to do anything to be a part of that.
He's the first person to give us a lawful good answer, Lindsey. He's the first person to be like, I just want to help people, man. Right? I think you have another buddy. And it's weird to ask you, because you're probably doing the business.
Right.
But what is... Okay, you're good. Okay.
Yeah, he's one of us.
I thought it was another Skutt, and I'm like, there's more than one of you here, right?
That's right. They're all over the place.
What would you be if you had like unlimited money, Batman time, resources, evil genie style? What would you do?
Well, so I mean, obviously at a young age, at 24, 25,
the genie makes you young.
I picked this path, and I knew that that would be the last job that I had unless something went terribly wrong. So to sign up for a family business, and you're kind of all in at 25.
Right.
And so I haven't moved. It's just like, hey, man, this is where I'm going to be. And I've loved virtually every minute of it. There's been a few points, that haven't been perfect highlights. But all in all, I have stepped out of the CEO role, and our timing's perfect. Our current CEO, Skutt.
That's the CEO?
That's the current CEO of Skutt.
You have to stop doing this to me.
And I was lucky enough to give myself a promotion up to the board chair and start a board of directors. And so I'm doing that now as my full-time, part-time job.
So you're a Skutt, but you're now
in the board chair.
You're a board chair, and that's the CEO.
That's the CEO for another couple months, and we're in the middle of replacing Skutt.
I came here finding none of this.
Right? So it's all about kind of the transition. So it's a great game of business, and when I started, somebody like yourself asked me, "What do you want to do with this company? You're the third generation," and somehow this answer popped into my head, but I've held on to it. As I said, I just want to leave it better than I found it. And now, fast forward almost 40 years, I don't know if it's better, but it's different. And,
it's definitely better.
And so it's been fun to be able
Skutt is a lawful good company.
and I still talk to my dad on the regular. He's 90, coming up on 92.
It's wild.
And he's a board member, and he's sharp as a tack. And we're still asking him questions of what we can do, what we should do. And so I hope I can be doing that well in the future.
Those are the purest answers I've ever heard in my time. Everyone else is like, I would build the world's biggest kiln, and I would fire the rarest wood I could fire with the best, like the purest oxides in it and whatnot. And I'm like, that's awesome, but that's the answer everyone gives. You two are like, I'm already doing it.
I'm doing it.
Well, thank you.
I do get to mess around in boats a bit these days, so that's pretty fun.
That's fair. Yeah. Fair. Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, and thank you for sharing your program.
Absolutely.
Is there anywhere we can find this program?
Yes. So you can go to skutt.com/kidsneedclay. And since we are already shamelessly plugging it, I will say there is also a lesson plan contest that is going to be live, and you have a chance to enter to win a home studio. Teachers out there, keyword is home studio, so you don't have to take it to school. All you have to do is submit a lesson plan. That's going to be going live, and we'll be able to send out emails for that.
Clean out your middle class garage, get rid of the stuff, and then you can have home studio.
Bam.
Right. Thank you. And
All right.
it's weird asking you where people could find you.
Yeah, I mean, my email's been out there for a long time since the interweb started. So just jim@skutt.com, and these guys will make sure it gets to me.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I really appreciate having you on, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. You're too big.
It's really
Thank
fun.
you.
And that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of The Mud Peddlers. We would love to hear from you, so if you want to share your thoughts about the episodes or just see what Donte and I are working on in our studios, come say hi. You can find links to my social media at lindseymdillon.com. That's LINDSEY, M as in monster, DILLON.com.
And you can visit my pottery shop or see what I'm working on at earthnationceramics.com. And you can find me all over social media at Earth Nation Ceramics. It's spelled exactly how you think it's spelled.
And if you want to support the show, hear some bonus episodes, and see some behind the scenes of my work, you can support me and the show at patreon.com/Lindsey M Dillon. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next time.